A few days ago, Claude was released for Excel as an add-in, which means that now you can use the best AI model right within Excel. You can give the instructions in plain English and it can do a lot of amazing things. You can create templates, you can create advanced formulas, you can extract data from PDFs, and you can do a lot many things. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to get Claude in Excel and then how to properly use it. So let's get started. So to get Claude in your Excel file, you need to go to this add-ins option. And when you click on it, you will have to search for Claude. You'll find something like this, Claude by Anthropic. And when you click on it, it will appear here. Now, when you open Claude, the first time it will ask you to log into your account so that this can get connected to your account. Now, to use this, you need to be a paying member, at least on their Pro plan, which is $20 a month. Now, in this window, there are a couple of options. So let me quickly go through them. First is the selection of model. You can select Sonnet 4.5, which is slightly less good compared to Opus. And Opus 4.5 is the best AI model out there. So in this video, I'm going to be using Opus, but you can use Sonnet for low work, which is a simple level of data formatting or a little bit of extraction. You can use Sonnet because then it will give you higher level of limits. Now, here we have this option called clear chat. So if you have a chat and it's a long chat and you want to work on something else, you can click on it and it is going to clear the chat. Here we have the settings option, and when you click on it, you see something called a session logging. Now, if you enable this, it is going to create a new tab and then it is going to keep a log of all the changes it is doing. So if you're working on a file and you're making a lot of changes, this will keep a tab of it. So I'll keep it enabled here and I'll show you how it works. Then this is where it shows you the cell that is selected, and then this is where you can type your instructions in plain English and Claude is going to do whatever you asked it to do here. Also, one very important thing is this option called ask before edits. So when Claude is making changes, because Claude can delete the data, add data, write formulas for you, it will always ask you before edits. But if you know what you're doing or if you're just trying it out, you can also choose accept all edits. So in that case, it is not going to ask you anything. It will just make the changes. So I'm going to use this option, but I recommend when you're doing it, you use the ask before edits option. And then you have this log option here. It becomes visible when you have this enabled. When you disable it, it goes away. And then finally, we have this option where you can also add files here. So you can add PDF files or documents, and it also has this option called search the web. So you can actually search the web and get the data from there, which is again, I will show you in one of the examples. So now with this, let's see some examples where you can actually use Claude to build some templates and get some work done. Now let me start with a very simple example. I want to generate a random dummy data set, let's say for one of my videos, and I don't want to manually do it, so I would ask Claude to do it. Now this is a very simple example. You can use Sonnet for this if you want, but I'll continue with Opus. And I'm going to use this chat here to just put these instructions in plain English. Now I'm going to use a tool called Whisper Flow to do speech to text. So I would be speaking and it would be typing. So that way it is going to be a little faster. So here I would just say, create a 20-row sales data for me that includes transaction ID, dates, salesperson's name, region, and the product name. So let's see what it does. So I have this given as plain instruction, and I have already selected cell A1. So it'll probably think about it a little bit, create the data set in the backend, and then once it has created the data, it'll simply put the data on the sheet. So you can see the data started to come. And here it has put all the data in the sheet. Now again, this is dummy data. If you want, you can change this. You can ask Claude to make changes here, but Claude will make all the changes that you ask it here. And you can see by default, it has done the formatting and all. But if you want, you can ask Claude to make changes to this data, add to it, remove something, clean the data. But this is a very basic example. Now, another thing I wanted to show you is that Claude has automatically created a file called claude.log where it automatically logs the changes it has done. Now it's not very detailed, but it still tells you what is done. For example, it tells you that it generated 20-row sales data table. It generated these headers, and it was done in this tab called generate data A1 to E21. So it gives you at least some things of what are the changes that Claude has done. Now, another thing is if you want, you can continue in the same chat. And if the chat becomes too long for Claude, it would automatically compress it and you can continue to chat with it. The other thing you can do is you can clear it and then you can start afresh. So let me show you how to create a loan amortization schedule, and the reason I've picked up this example is because a few weeks ago I created this manually and it took me a few hours to do it. So let's see how you can use Claude Code to get a jump start and quickly get a schedule. And if you're not okay with it, you want to tweak it a little bit, you can either use Claude or you can do it manually. So here I would go into this chat and let's give all the information to Claude and try and be as detailed as you can. And if you want, you can also ask Claude to ask follow-up questions and then it will make the schedule for you. Please create a loan amortization schedule where these are the details. The loan amount is $200,000. The interest rate is 6% annually, and the tenure of the loan is 20 years. Also have an additional column in the end where I can put extra payment. So if I make any extra payment, then it is going to account for it and adjust the principal amount and the interest. Yeah, so let's see what it does. I've given it all the instructions. In most cases, if it needs any more details, it would ask me, but it is also a good idea to just ask Claude, tell Claude if there are anything additional you want, just ask me. I forgot it, but it's a good idea to do that. Now let's see what it does. So it's going through it and it has created these input values, and now it will start working on the schedule. So you can see it has an extra payment highlighted in green, which means that this is something that I would manually be inputting, and then everything else would be controlled by formulas, I'm assuming. Yeah, so it has created the amortization schedule. It's doing a little bit of sanity check and column resizing, but otherwise it says that it has already done it and it is going to log it in the log sheet. Now this looks all right, and you can see that these are separate formulas in separate columns. Let's also test it out. So if I put 5,000 here, you can see that it works. It is going to change and adjust all these things. Maybe we do not need this because if we have extra payments, we would not have a fixed monthly payment here. But you can see that if we make these entries, it automatically adjusts. So it seems to be working. Obviously, you'll have to go in and check whether the numbers are right or not. But as of now, on the outside, that seems to be working. Now, what I'm going to do is I do not want these separate formulas in separate columns. So let's come here and ask Claude, can you give me one single formula in cell A14 instead of separate formulas in separate columns? It could be a let formula that spills and gives me the result till column F. In column G, I could manually input the extra payment, so that should remain as is. Now let's see what it does. What it's going to do is it is going to remove all these formulas and it is going to work on the new formula that is going to be a dynamic array formula that spills and gives us the result in all these cells. So you can see it has already worked out the formula. It is working on it. It may find some issues and it is going to go back and correct them. So you see this text in red. This means that it is finding some issues, but it is going to go back and correct and ensure that everything is right. Once it is done with it, it will let you know. Yeah, so it is actually done with it. It says, now let me log this action, which means that it is done with it. It gives you the formula and it explains how this formula works. If you want to know how this formula works more in detail, you can always ask Claude, but you can see this is this huge formula. Now, I'm not saying that this is the most optimized version of this formula, but this is a good starting point. It has made the formula. You can check the numbers if everything is working. And if you want a formula that is most optimized, you can do it. But if you want a working schedule, you already have it. If you want to make any changes, you can just ask Claude and it will make those changes for you. Here is another cool example. I want to create a dynamic calendar where I can change the month name and the year value, and the calendar would automatically update. Now, this is again something I created a few months ago and it took me some time to create it, but let's see how long does Claude take. So I would go to the chat and here I would just give the instructions. Create a monthly dynamic calendar where I have a cell that has the month value or the month name, then a cell that has the year value, and then when I make the changes, it changes the monthly calendar. In the monthly calendar, I need the day names, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, in a row, and then below that I have the calendar, and I also want you to format the weekend date so that those are highlighted in a different color. Let's see what it does. It may or may not give me what I want, but it should be a good starting point where I can ask it to make tweaks or I can manually make the changes. So right now it's going to first, I think, create those placeholder cells with month and year value, and then it is going to create the calendar. Now, so you can see it has the month value, the year value. It also has this cell which says February 2025. Now it's not properly formatted, but it's giving me like a header of the calendar. Then it has given me these days, and now it's working on the formula that is going to give me all these values. So let's see what it comes up with. All right, so the calendar is done. It says it's working. We'll also check this. And then now it's working on the formatting. I think it'll probably add some borders or something. All right, so it has added a border as well. And you can see that now it's logging it in the log sheet. Now it has also adjusted the alignment of this, so it looks like a header. Obviously you can change this, you can adjust it. You can see there is a formula here, and this looks pretty decent. Now let's check this. So let's go for month as, and you can see it has also added these notes, which is nice to have. So you have some instructions, and let's see if I make this to 2026. Yeah, it's fine, because I'm recording this video in February 2026, and I know that this is the right calendar. It starts on a Sunday and ends on a Saturday. So this is a nice monthly calendar, dynamic calendar. There are a few issues with it, but these are minor issues that you can quickly adjust. Also, you can see that these are separate formulas. Now, to be honest, I'm okay with it, but if you want one single formula, you can just ask Claude, and it is going to give you one single formula that will just fill the entire calendar. So in this example, I want Claude to help me with the formula. So I have this data and I want to repeat each of these rows, let's say 3 times. And I did create a formula myself a few weeks ago, and I also made a video on this, but I want Claude to do this. Now it took me a little bit of time to get this formula done, but Claude is probably going to give me the formula in seconds. So let me copy these headers and put them here, and then ask Claude to give me the formula here. So I can just come to the chat, create a formula in cell G4 that is going to take the data from cell A4 to E10 and then repeat each row 3 times. Now I want you to create a dynamic formula where the formula itself has the range and the repeat value, and I can just change the repeat value from, let's say, 3 to 5, and it is going to repeat each row 5 times. You can probably use a let formula to do this. Yeah, so I've given it the context, and I've also given it a little bit of guidance that you can probably try and use a let function to do this. So let's see what it comes up with. Yeah, so it sees the data, and it also sees that I have these headers in this, and it has created the formula, and it's working. It's verifying whether the formula is working or not, and it says that the formula is working perfectly. Now I can go into this cell, and you can see this is the formula nicely formatted, and it has the data which has the range. So if the range changes, I can change it here, and the repeat value is here. If I want to change the repeat value, I can just come here, make it 5, and hopefully this should work. Yeah, so this is working. So yeah, something that took me maybe 20-30 minutes to get done, Claude is able to do it in 10-15 seconds. So that's pretty cool. Again, do not blindly trust what Claude gives you. If it's a formula, if it's a value, if it's anything, always make sure to double check it. Remember, Claude right now is in beta, so it may make mistakes, but it should always give you a good starting point where you can build upon it. Another cool use case is to quickly use Claude to format your data. So here I have data, it's just plain numbers and text values, and I can use Claude to format it. Now, if you already have your brand colors or something, you can give it to Claude. In my case, I'll just ask it to make it beautiful by formatting it, but then you can feed in more data, and then it can make the formatting look just like you wanted. So I'll just say, can you format this data and make it look professional and nicer? Obviously not a very good prompt, but Claude will at least do something, give me some ideas, and if I want, then I can manually change the formatting. So yeah, it has decided what it's going to do. It has made a plan and it's working on it. Now it has changed the header. Yes, it has added these assumptions thing. Now let me do it completely, and we'll see what we get. All right, so this is the final result that I've got. Obviously, this is a lot better than what I already had. If you think that this is not something that you want, you can obviously either ask Claude to make the changes, or you can manually adjust a couple of things in here. But formatting quickly is something, if you have a presentation or if you have to quickly send out a report, instead of sending badly looking numbers, you can quickly format it with Claude and then send it. Another thing you can do with Claude is ask it to make a pivot table, and it will make it for you. So this is the data that I have, and let me ask Claude to create a pivot table. can you create a pivot table for me? I'm interested in knowing the revenue by region and by product. And let's see what it does. So it is able to manage pivot tables. Claude does have access to your grid. It cannot work with the data validation or conditional formatting or these other tools, but it can work with the pivot table. So you can see it has quickly created this pivot table for me where I have these regions and these products, perfectly exactly what I wanted. So you can also quickly create a pivot table. If you do not want the pivot table here, you can ask Claude to insert a new sheet and then put the pivot table there as well. So here I have this data set where I have these errors, and you can see that these errors, and if I go through them, I would probably be able to figure out. But if I use Claude, I can quickly ask Claude to highlight the cells that have errors, and at the same time, maybe put a comment telling me why this error is happening, or maybe just one by one tell me why this is happening. So let's just ask Claude. So let me clear the chat. And here I'll ask, can you go through the cells and highlight the cells that have an error in it, and also add a comment detailing why there is this error. It would also be helpful if you could suggest a solution on how to correct that error. Yeah, so let's see what it gives us. So it's going to go through all of these cells. It is going to identify the cells that have error. Hopefully it is going to highlight all of them. So it has identified 4 cells with errors, which is fine, which is correct. Now it should be able to highlight them. So you can see that it's highlighting them, and it is adding these comments, which is nice. So if you have a file, a big file, a large file, and you quickly want to just scan through it and see if there are errors or there are no errors, you can quickly ask Claude to do it. Obviously, there are other ways to do it. You can select errors. There is this option in, I think, Paste Special. You can always have these filters based on how your data is organized. But again, Claude is giving you this way of quickly highlighting these cells, and at the same time, it is also telling you why this is happening. So in this case, you can see that it gives me a detailed reason of what's the cause of this. So it says contains text instead of a number, and then it also gives a solution. So this is again something, if you're creating financial models or other models and things are not working out, you can quickly ask Claude. You can also do some data cleaning with Claude, but I would caution you that whenever you do something where Claude is removing data or it is adding data, then you may not have full control over it. So always create a backup copy and always be sure what you're doing. In most cases, data cleaning is not a good idea with Claude. There are other ways, but let me quickly show you the kind of things you can do. So here I have this data, and you can see that the dates are inconsistent. So if I want to make these dates consistent, I can just ask Claude, can you make the dates in column E consistent? And obviously you can give more details if you want it in a specific format. You can specify that as well, but it is going to go through all of these dates and it will try and make them consistent. Now in some cases these are actually text, so it may even clean the data and replace them with actual numbers. So you can see it has replaced it with a number, a serial number for the date, and it is going to go through and hopefully do that. Now as of now, yeah, so it says all the dates in column E are now stored as serial numbers, which ensure that they'll sort correctly. So it has done it, but it has not actually done it properly. They're still in the wrong format. So maybe I can ask, can you make them all in the format? And we can say DD, MMM, Y. Let's see what it does. Yeah, so it has changed the format and all the dates are now consistent. If you want to remove any rows, for example, let's say I have a test user, and if you have multiple of such rows and you want to delete them, obviously you can apply a filter and do that, but you can also just ask Claude Code to do it. Maybe we can ask Claude to highlight them. Can you highlight all the rows where even a single cell is empty in that row in the data set? So yeah, maybe instead of deleting, I would ask Claude to highlight the blank rows or blank records, and then I can manually then delete them. So that is probably a safer way to do it. So it has identified that row 18 and 19 have blank cells and it has highlighted them. Again, be a bit cautious when you're using Claude for data cleaning, because once it deletes the data, it may be an issue for you. So always keep backup and maybe avoid data cleaning with Claude. You can also use Claude to quickly create charts and then edit charts if you want to. So here I have this data and I can just ask, can you quickly create a column chart for this data? And it will read the data, it will figure out what's the best kind of chart, best kind of column chart for this kind of data, and then it will create one. And obviously if that is not the one, you can delete it and then you can ask it to create another one. So in this case, it identified that maybe clustered column chart is going to be nicer for this data, so it created one. I told you in the beginning that Claude has access to web data. So here, if you look at this option, it says search the web, which means that if I ask it a question and it needs to search the web for that question, it is going to do that if you have internet access. So in this case, let me just ask it to fill this data, fill this template. And let's say I want to get this data for Microsoft. So can you fill this template for Microsoft? And obviously this is a very simple question, but if you want, you can give more details. Maybe you want the data for a specific fiscal year. So it's going to read this template first. It'll identify what are the things it needs to search for. Then it is going to search for these things on the web, find this data and bring it back. Now you will have to, and you should go and check if the data is correct or not, but it will give you all the guidance and where it has picked up the data. So it makes it easier for you to actually cross check that the data is right or not. Yes, it says now, let me search the official SEC filing. So it's doing that. It has all the data for these financial years. So it should put this data here. It has started doing that. So it has put the fiscal year, Microsoft, the ticker value, and it has put all these values as well. Now, as I said, you should go back and check, but what it does is it gives you this data. So it tells you that the source is this investor relation, and then it also gives you the link. So if you want, you can come here and you can open this and check. So this makes it a little easier. You don't have to actually go and find the data. It'll get you the data and then you can just cross check. Now Claude do not have access to conditional formatting, at least not yet, but you can ask Claude to go through your data, and if you want to highlight specific rows or specific cells, it can do that, but this will not be conditional formatting, which means that this is not going to be dynamic. For example, in this case, if I want to highlight all the rows or maybe all the names where the status is below target, I can do that. So I can just ask Claude, can you please highlight all the employee names where their status is below target? And ideally it should be able to check the status and then go back and then highlight the employee names. This is a fairly small data set. It should also work in a decently mid-sized data set, maybe a few hundred rows or even thousands of rows. But the number of rows, the more the number of rows, the more context it would take up. So first of all, your limit, your weekly or a monthly limit of Claude is going to get exhausted. And at the same time, it is going to take more time. So you can see it has done that. I can manually see that these are correct. So if you're working with a small data set and you just want to quickly highlight a few cells based on a few conditions, you can just ask Claude to do it instead of manually doing it. Now this final example is actually a pretty good one. You can upload a PDF file into Claude and then ask Claude to go through that file and extract the data from there. For example, if you have an annual report and you want to extract the income statement or the balance sheet, you can do that. So let me show you how it works. So in this case, I have this plus icon, and when I click on it, it says add files or photos. If I click on this one, and I already have this Adobe 10K file. So let me upload this one and let me also show you the file. So this is a large file. And if I go through this one and go to, let's say, page number 48 here, I have this consolidated statement of income. Now let's say that this is what I want here in my Excel file. Now there are ways to do this. You can use Power Query, but sometimes if the structure is not right, Power Query doesn't work that well. But with AI, it can actually understand the data and it will be able to format the data and give you the data in the right structure. Obviously, you will have to double check, but it is going to ease your work. So I've uploaded the file. I can just say, can you give me the following data from page number 48? And then I can just say consolidated statements of income. Now what this is going to do is read this PDF file. Now if you are using a $20 plan on Claude, just remember that the bigger the file, the more context window is being used up, the more tokens are being used up, and then you may not be left with enough. But if it is a file, if you have, let's say, 10 or 5 pages, then you can easily do this. So now in this case, what it's doing is it is going through the data in the PDF file, and then it will give me the data here. Obviously I'll have to double check, but you'll see that this is a lot faster than trying any tool or maybe Power Query where the data is not well structured. So it has found the data. It says I found the consolidated statements of income data. Now it's extracting it. So let's see how long it takes. All right, so it has given me this data here, and I can go back and I can check if it is right. So total cost of revenue, total Cost of revenue 2551, which is right, 235. So you can see the data is right. Obviously, I have not checked all these data points, but you can quickly do it. But you can see this is so much easier and faster. It has given you this data in this structure. And now if you want to quickly clean this, format it, you can ask Claude to do it. And this is so much faster. So these are the examples I wanted to show you for Claude. There are a lot of things Claude cannot do in Excel so far. It cannot work with conditional formatting, Power Query. It cannot do data validation. But even at this point, it is pretty useful and powerful. And the best thing is, this is the worst it is going to be. It is just going to get better. So if you are already using Claude or considering using Claude, get this add-in in Excel and start using it. And let me know in the comments what amazing things you're doing with it, and let everyone learn from you. That's it in this video. I hope you found this useful. Also, if you're liking these videos, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and click on the bell icon so that you never miss out on any new Excel tips video I come up with. Thank you and have a nice day.